The first thing Daniel Rook noticed was not the name on the envelope. It was the red word stamped across the top. Urgent. The envelope had been wedged beneath a warped cabinet in the basement records room, soaked at one corner by a pipe that had been leaking long enough to stain the concrete brown. It was 2:13 in the morning. The building was quiet except for the drip of water into Daniel's yellow mop bucket and the distant hum of the ventilation system. He should have put the envelope with the other damaged papers and called his supervisor. Instead, he turned it over. Elara Vance. Everyone in Graybridge Rehabilitation Center knew that name. 15 specialists had studied her case. 15 had reached the same conclusion. The damage was permanent. The woman who had once commanded boardrooms from New York to Seattle would never stand again. But the sentence visible through the torn paper said something else. Further imaging strongly recommended. Potentially reversible compression cannot be excluded. Daniel was a night janitor. He was not a doctor. He did not understand most of the words that followed. He understood one thing. This report had never been placed in her chart, and someone had tried very hard to make sure it never would be. Before we begin, tap like if you believe ordinary people can notice what powerful people ignore, and tell me in the comments who taught you to keep looking when everyone else had stopped. 4 months earlier, Daniel's greatest concern had been whether the transmission in his 12-year-old van would survive another winter. The answer, according to the mechanic, was probably not. The mechanic had said it gently, with the careful sympathy people used when they knew a person could not afford the truth. Daniel had thanked him, paid for the temporary repair, and driven home with both hands tight on the wheel. His daughter, Tess, sat in the back seat with her purple backpack beside her and a library book open on her knees. "Is the van sick?" she asked. "Just old. Grandma says old things can still work if somebody takes care of them." Daniel looked at her in the mirror. 7 years old. Brown hair cut unevenly because she had moved while his sister was trimming it. A missing front tooth. Serious eyes that reminded him so much of her mother that some mornings he had to look away before Tess noticed. "Grandma is usually right," he said. "Usually?" "Almost always." That answer satisfied her. It had been 3 years since Claire died. A brain aneurysm in the kitchen on a Thursday morning. No warning. No long illness. No time to prepare a child who had been 4 years old and still believed every goodbye was temporary. Daniel had learned afterward that grief did not arrive as one event. It came as 1,000 missing instructions. Claire had known which socks Tess refused to wear because the seam hurt her toes. Claire had known how much cinnamon went into oatmeal and where the school kept the emergency contact forms. She had known when Daniel was pretending not to worry. Then she was gone, and every ordinary thing became a question he had to answer alone. He had been a maintenance technician at a downtown hotel then. The job paid well enough, but the hours changed without warning. After Claire's death, he missed 2 overnight calls because Tess had a fever. He left early once when the school nurse could not reach anyone else. His manager told him he understood. Human to human, he truly did. The company could not. Daniel was let go 6 weeks later. Graybridge Rehabilitation Center hired him as a janitor because the shift was steady, the health insurance was good, and no one cared that his resume showed a gap as long as he could operate a floor machine and pass a background check. He worked from 6 in the evening until 2:30 in the morning. His mother stayed with Tess on school nights. Daniel picked his daughter up before 3, carried her from his mother's guest room to the van, and brought her home without waking her most nights. It was not the life he had imagined. It was a life that worked. Graybridge stood on a wooded rise outside St. Louis, 6 stories of pale brick and wide glass windows. It had started as a small neurological hospital in the 1970s and had grown into a private rehabilitation center where wealthy patients came when ordinary treatment had failed. The public brochures called it a place of second chances. The staff had other names for it. The Marble Hotel, the Last Stop, the building where hope came dressed in expensive clothes and left through the service entrance. Daniel did not use any of those names. A building was a building. Every room had air vents that collected dust. Every floor had corners people missed. Every person, no matter what their name was printed on, left fingerprints on glass. He liked the honesty of cleaning. The surface was dirty or it was not. A drain was blocked or it was clear. Work did not flatter anyone. It did not pretend. Elara Vance arrived in October. Daniel knew because his supervisor, Hal Brennan, called the night crew together beside the loading dock and handed out a new list of rules. The sixth-floor east wing would be restricted. No carts left unattended. No personal phones. No conversation with the patient unless she spoke first. No photographs, no autographs, no requests for favors, and absolutely no mention of her company. She owns half the medical transport vehicles in this country, one of the younger cleaners whispered after Hal walked away. She does not own the sixth floor, Daniel said. Her family donated the new therapy wing. Then her name owns a wall. The young man laughed. Daniel did not. He had seen famous guests at the hotel. Wealth changed what people expected, not what they needed. Clean water, working lights, a door that locked, someone who came when they pressed the call button. Elara's suite had once been 4 separate patient rooms. Graybridge had joined them into a private apartment with a bedroom, office, therapy room, and sitting area. New furniture arrived in sealed trucks. A security team checked every maintenance access point. Her uncle, Adrian Vance, toured the floor with the hospital director and spoke as if the building belonged to him. Daniel first saw Elara at 10:40 on a Tuesday night. He was replacing a torn trash liner near the elevator when the doors opened. A nurse stepped out first, then a tall man in a dark suit. Then Elara. She was 36, though the photographs in business magazines made her look older. In those photographs, she stood in black suits beside electric delivery trucks and airport terminals. One hand lifted as if the future had arrived because she had called it into the room. The woman in the wheelchair looked smaller, not weak. Contained, her dark hair was cut to her jaw. Her shoulders were straight. Her face had the stillness of someone who had learned that every expression would be interpreted by strangers. Daniel moved his cart out of the way. Elara's eyes went to the yellow caution sign near the wall. "The floor is dry," he said. "The sign is for the corner by the drinking fountain." The man in the suit looked annoyed that Daniel had spoken. Elara looked at the floor, then at Daniel. "Why is it wet?" "The fountain valve is failing." "I shut off the supply. Maintenance will replace it in the morning." "You are maintenance?" "Night environmental services." "A janitor." Yes, she studied him for 1 second longer than politeness required. "Then why did you diagnose the valve?" "Because water is coming from the stem, not the drain." Her eyes returned to the fountain. "And no one else noticed?" "Someone noticed the water." "That was not my question." Daniel rested one hand on the cart handle. "No," he said. "No one else noticed the valve." The nurse shifted uncomfortably. The man in the suit looked at his watch. Elara nodded once. The group moved past him. That should have been the end of it. It was not. 3 nights later, Daniel entered the 6th-floor east wing at 11:30 and found Elara's office door open. The lights were off except for a desk lamp. She sat near the window, reading a stack of documents. A glass of water stood untouched beside her. Daniel stopped outside the room. "I can come back. You are scheduled now." "I am." "Then clean now." Her voice was flat. Not cruel exactly. Tired enough to sound cruel. Daniel emptied the bins, wiped the side table, and cleaned a faint mark from the glass door. He worked quietly. When he reached the desk, Elara placed one hand over the papers. "Do not move anything." "I won't." The last person moved the blue folder 3 inches. "That sounds difficult." Her head lifted. Daniel kept his face neutral. Was that sarcasm? "No. I imagine 3 inches matters when someone arranges things for a reason." She watched him wipe the edge of the desk without touching the folders. "Most people apologize when I correct them." "Did I do something wrong?" "Not yet." "Then I will save the apology." A sound came from her throat, not laughter. Almost, Daniel moved to the window. On the sill sat a small folded paper star, yellow, creased unevenly, made from the back of a printed work order. He picked it up. Elara's expression hardened. I said not to move anything. This is mine. You decorate patient rooms with trash? My daughter makes them from old forms. One must have fallen out of my pocket. He turned it between his fingers. Tess folded the stars when she waited for him at his mother's house. She said dark places needed small skies. Throw it away, Elara said. Daniel looked at the wastebasket, then at the star. It is paper, she added. So are your folders. Her eyes sharpened. He put the star in his shirt pocket. Good night, Ms. Vance. You missed a mark on the cabinet. Daniel looked. She was right. He cleaned it. For the next 2 weeks, Elara found something wrong almost every night. A streak on the window, dust behind a lamp, a water spot under the soap dispenser. Once she called the environmental services desk at 1:05 in the morning because the wheels of her therapy table had gray marks on them. Daniel cleaned the wheels. He did not complain to Hal. He did not ask another janitor to trade floors. He did not decide that her pain excused her behavior. Either, he simply did the work. The nurses began to notice. She made a day cleaner cry. Maribel Santos, the night charge nurse, told him near the supply room. Did the cleaner do something wrong? She used a lavender product. Miss Vance said the smell made her nauseated. Then we should not use lavender. She could have said it without making the girl feel stupid. Yes, Maribel waited for more. Daniel loaded fresh microfiber cloths into his cart. That is all? What else is there? You do not defend her. You do not insult her. Neither would clean the room. Maribel smiled despite herself. You are strange, Mr. Rook. So I have been told. Elara's case had begun 22 months earlier. Her company, Vance Meridian, built routing systems for emergency fleets and large hospital networks. She had founded it at 27 after watching an ambulance carrying her father get trapped behind a freight collision. He survived, but the delay changed the way she saw roads, time, and systems. Within 7 years, her software coordinated thousands of vehicles across the country. Business magazines called her ruthless. Investors called her exact. Employees called her Miss Vance, even at company picnics. Then, after a charity event in Chicago, a temporary platform collapsed beneath her. She fell 14 feet. The first hospital found fractures, swelling, and damage around the middle of her spine. She had surgery that night. When she woke, she could not feel her legs. The surgeon said swelling sometimes took months to settle. A second specialist said the cord injury was incomplete, and recovery might be possible. A third said the first surgery had done all it could. A fourth recommended another procedure. A fifth said another procedure would create more scar tissue. By the time the 15th doctor reviewed her case, hope had become something people discussed outside her room. The final report used careful words. No clinically meaningful motor recovery anticipated. Elara heard only one. Never. She returned to work from a wheelchair and lasted 6 months before the board placed her on medical leave. Adrian Vance, her father's younger brother, became interim chief executive. He promised the arrangement was temporary. Temporary things had a way of becoming permanent when enough money depended on them. At Graybridge, Elara's days followed a strict pattern. Therapy at 8. Medical reviews at 10. Company calls from noon to 4. Rest, which she refused to call rest, between 4 and 6. More work in the evening. Daniel saw only the hours after most people left. He saw the coffee cups she never finished. The legal pads covered in small, controlled handwriting. The way she placed call summaries into 2 piles, one labeled now and the other labeled after. There was no pile labeled later. He also saw the things she hid. The antispasm medication beneath a clean handkerchief. The pressure marks on her palms from pushing too hard against the wheels. The framed photograph turned face down in the bedroom. He never touched it. One night in November, he was cleaning the therapy room when Elara returned early, from a video call. She stopped in the doorway. Why is that machine unplugged? Daniel glanced at the electrical stimulation unit near the wall. The plug is damaged. It worked this morning. It can work and still be damaged. My therapist did not report a problem. The ground pin is loose. You inspect medical equipment now? I inspect plugs before I mop around them. She wheeled closer. Plug it back in. No, the word seemed to change the air. Elara's hands went still on the rims. Excuse me? It is not safe. Biomedical engineering has been notified. They will replace the cord before your morning session. I have already lost enough therapy time because people are afraid of liability. This is not fear. It is a loose ground. I am telling you to plug it in. And I am telling you I won't. She stared at him. Daniel could feel his pulse in his neck. He needed the job. He needed the insurance. He needed every dollar of the night differential. He still did not plug it in. Elara looked at the machine, then back at him. You think you know better than my care team? No, I know a damaged plug when I see one. There is a difference? A large one. For several seconds, neither moved. Then Elara turned her chair. Finish the room. Daniel expected a complaint by morning. Instead, when he arrived the next night, a new power cord had been installed. Beside the machine sat a yellow paper star. Not the one Tess had made before. This one was folded from a blank sheet of expensive cream stationery. The corners were crooked. One side had torn. Daniel picked it up. Elara was in the office, watching through the open door. It is poorly made, she said. It is. Your daughter has more practice. A great deal more. I found instructions online. Daniel turned the star in his hand. Why? Elara looked away first. The room was dark. It was the first honest thing she gave him. After that, the nights changed by degrees too small for anyone else to measure. Elara still corrected him. Daniel still refused to accept blame for things he had not done. She stopped calling the desk when she could speak to him directly. He stopped announcing himself at the office door because she began leaving it open. The paper star stayed on the shelf beside her therapy schedule. Some nights it faced the room, some nights it faced the wall. Daniel learned that this was a kind of weather report. When the star faced the room, Elara had received news she could tolerate. When it faced the wall, a doctor had used the phrase quality of life, or her uncle had called, or the board had postponed another decision until she was well enough to participate, which meant until they had decided she never would be. He never turned it around for her. He did start leaving the office blinds half open after he cleaned them. The eastern horizon was visible from the 6th floor. At 6:40 in the morning, long after Daniel had gone home, light reached the windows. Elara never mentioned the blinds. They were never closed again. In early December, Graybridge hired a consulting neurologist from Boston to review Elara's records. He was the 16th doctor, though Elara refused to count him that way. Daniel saw him leave at 7:20 in the evening. He was silver-haired, careful, and surrounded by 3 people carrying tablets. Adrian Vance followed him into the elevator. Elara remained in the conference room alone. Daniel entered 20 minutes later with a trash bag and found a ceramic cup broken on the floor. He stopped. Elara sat at the far end of the table. Her face was dry. Her right hand rested in her lap. Her left hand was closed around the wheel rim so tightly that the skin across her knuckles had gone white. I dropped it, she said. Daniel looked at the distance between her chair and the broken cup. All right. Do not look at me like that. Like what? As if you know I threw it. Daniel set his bag down and took a small dustpan from his cart. I know it is on the floor. He said nothing will change. Daniel crouched and swept the first piece of porcelain into the pan. The doctor? He reviewed every scan, every surgical note, every test. He said the damage is established. He said pursuing more opinions may be doing psychological harm. The next shard was beneath the table. Daniel reached for it carefully. Do you agree? She asked. I am not qualified to disagree. That was not my question. Daniel sat back on his heels. Elara's voice had the sharpness he knew, but something underneath it had split open. Do you think I am harming myself by refusing to accept it? He considered lying. Comforting people often required small dishonesties. Claire had been better at them. She could say everything would be all right and make the sentence feel less like a prediction than a place to rest. Daniel had never learned how. I think there is a difference between accepting what is true and accepting what people are tired of investigating. Elara did not move. And how would a janitor know that difference? A blocked drain and a broken pipe both leave water on the floor. If you stop at the puddle, they look like the same problem. I am not a drain. No. My spinal cord is not a pipe. No. That is a terrible comparison. It is. For 1 second, her mouth changed. Then the expression was gone. Daniel finished collecting the pieces. Near the leg of the table, he found a drop of blood. He looked at Elara's left hand. A thin line ran across her palm where the broken cup had cut her. You are bleeding. I know. Did you feel it? Her eyes lifted. Daniel understood at once that he had crossed into territory she guarded. In my hand? Yes, I meant your leg. There was another small red mark on the side of her ankle. A shard had landed against her skin. Elara looked down. No. Daniel reached for a clean gauze pad from the wall dispenser. As he moved the chairside footrest slightly to reach the shard, Elara's right foot twitched. It was small. A tightening beneath the blanket. A movement no larger than the width of a coin. Daniel froze. Elara saw his face. What? Nothing, you are a poor liar. Your foot moved. The room went silent. Elara looked down again. Spasms happen. All right. They do not mean voluntary function. I did not say they did. Every therapist I have had has documented them. Then it is documented. Do not do that. Do what? Put hope into a thing that has already been explained. Daniel placed the gauze within her reach. I saw movement. I do not know what it means. Those are separate facts. Elara stared at the blanket over her knees. Leave, she said. Daniel took the broken cup and left. The next night, the paper star faced the wall. For 6 days, Elara kept the office door closed. Daniel cleaned the rest of the suite and did not knock. He did not apologize for telling the truth. He did not repeat what he had seen to the nurses. He did not turn the moment into a story that belonged to him. On the 7th night, the door opened while he was cleaning the hall. Elara sat in the doorway. The movement was a reflex, she said. Daniel switched off the floor machine. All right. Maribel checked the therapy notes. It has happened before. All right. You could say something else. Would it change the notes? Her jaw tightened. No, then I do not have anything useful to add. She looked at him with open irritation. Most people would try to make me feel better. Did you ask me to? No, then why would I? Elara looked past him toward the long, empty corridor. Because people cannot stand silence when someone is disappointed. Daniel rested both hands on the machine handle. I can. She nodded once, almost to herself. Yes, she said. I have noticed. The board crisis began a week before Christmas. Vance Meridian had spent 3 years developing a national emergency routing platform called Northline. The system could combine ambulance locations, trauma center capacity, weather closures, and traffic patterns in real time. Elara had designed the original model on a whiteboard in her apartment. Northline was supposed to become the company's largest contract. Adrian wanted to sell it. He arrived at Graybridge with 2 lawyers and a board packet thick enough to require its own case. Daniel saw them pass the nursing station at 5:50 in the afternoon. At 9:30, they were still in Elara's office. At 10:05, one lawyer left. At 10:20, the other followed. Adrian remained. Daniel was cleaning the family waiting room across the corridor when voices rose. You have missed 3 quarterly meetings, Adrian said, because you scheduled 2 of them during surgery and 1 during a neurological assessment. The board cannot plan around your medical calendar forever. The board exists because I built the company it governs. You built it. You are not running it. The sentence landed with enough force that Daniel stopped moving. He did not want to hear more. Private arguments were not public property just because a door had been left open. He began pushing his cart away. Then Adrian said, 15 doctors have told you the same thing, Elara. At some point, refusal becomes denial. Daniel looked toward the office. Elara's voice dropped. My legs have nothing to do with Northline. Your judgment does. Say what you came to say. The board will vote in January to make my appointment permanent. We have an offer for Northline. It is responsible. It protects shareholders. It dismantles the company. It saves what can be saved. From what? A pause. From waiting for you. Daniel heard the soft mechanical sound of Elara turning her chair. Get out. You should read the packet. Get out. Adrian emerged a moment later. He was in his late 40s, broad-shouldered, with the polished calm of a man who had never been forced to raise his voice to be obeyed. He saw Daniel beside the cart. How much did you hear? Enough to know the office needs privacy. Adrian's eyes moved over Daniel's uniform and identification badge. What is your name? Daniel Rook. Mr. Rook. My niece's circumstances attract curiosity. Curiosity can become expensive. Then you should close the door when you discuss expensive things. Adrian smiled without warmth. I will remember that. He walked away. Daniel waited until the elevator doors closed before entering the office. The board packet lay open on the floor. Pages had slid beneath the desk. Elara sat near the window, her back to the room. I did not call environmental services. No. Then why are you here? Your door is open and paper is on the floor. Leave it. Daniel began collecting the pages. I said leave it. Someone will roll over them. Then let them. That would make more work for everyone. You always reduce things to work. Work can be done. Elara turned. Her eyes were bright. Her face was furious. And what about the things that cannot? Daniel held the packet in both hands. You do not know yet which kind this is. He has the votes. Then change a vote. You think business is like tightening a screw. No. Screws are easier. Northline is worth more than this building. Then I assume someone beside your uncle knows that. The board knows what Adrian tells them. He controls the reports. He controls access. He has spent almost 2 years presenting every decision as proof that I am too ill to lead. Daniel placed the packet on the desk. Are you? Her expression became dangerous. Be careful. You asked what cannot be fixed. I am asking whether the problem is your ability or his story about it. Elara's breathing changed. You know nothing about my company. That is true. Nothing about the board. Also true. Nothing about what I have lost. Daniel looked at the paper star facing the wall. Not nothing. For several seconds, the only sound was the ventilation system. Then Elara lifted the packet. The 4th section contains the sale analysis. Daniel did not take it. I cannot read confidential board materials. You just told me to change a vote. That does not make me a lawyer. No, she said. It makes you irritating. I have been called worse. She almost smiled again. The next evening, Daniel found a legal pad on the side table with 3 questions written at the top. What does Northline do that no buyer can reproduce quickly? Who benefits if the sale happens before the January vote? What evidence would make one director delay? Elara was in the office on a call. Daniel did not ask about the questions. He cleaned around the pad. 2 nights later, it held answers. Northline had been trained on a decade of routing data that could not be replaced without years of agreements. Adrian's preferred buyer also employed a former Vance Meridian finance director. And one board member, Helen Shore, had opposed every major sale made without an independent valuation. Daniel knew none of this because Elara told him. He knew it because she began speaking while he worked, not asking for advice, thinking aloud. Adrian assumes the medical leave makes me legally weak, she said one night as Daniel polished the conference table. It does not. The bylaws require incapacity, not absence. Then why has no one challenged him? Because my lawyers are paid by the company, meaning they are paid by him. At the moment. Another night, she said, Helen Shore will not take my call. Why? Adrian told her I am emotionally unstable and being protected from business stress. Daniel looked at her. Are you? Protected, no unstable? Only when people ask stupid questions, then send something she cannot ignore. Such as? The truth. Elara's eyes narrowed. That is not a strategy. It is when someone else controls the story. 3 days before Christmas, Elara recorded a 12-minute presentation from the conference room. No dramatic music, no mention of her injury. She explained Northline's value, the risks of a rush sale, and the specific information the board had not received. She sent it to every director from her personal account. Helen Shore replied in 9 minutes. The January vote was delayed. Adrian called within the hour. Elara did not take the call. She sat at her desk with the phone vibrating beside her. Daniel was wiping the cabinet. You were right, she said. About which part? The story. That sounds unlikely. Do not make me repeat it. I wouldn't dare. She turned the paper star toward the room. On Christmas Eve, a snowstorm closed 3 roads around Graybridge. Half the night staff called out. Daniel's mother lost power at her house and brought Tess to the center because there was nowhere else warm to go. Hal found Daniel near the loading dock. Your kid can sit in the staff lounge until the road's clear, he said. Keep her out of patient areas. I will. Tess lasted 42 minutes in the lounge. Then the vending machine ate her dollar. Daniel was cleaning the 6th floor when Maribel called him. There is a very small person at the nurse's station asking to file a complaint. Daniel closed his eyes. I am coming. When he arrived, Tess stood in her winter coat with her hands on her hips. Maribel was trying not to laugh. The machine stole from me, Tess said. You were told to stay downstairs. I did. For a long time. 42 minutes. That is long when you are 7. Behind Daniel, a wheelchair motor hummed softly. Elara had come out of the east wing. Tess looked at her. Elara looked at Tess. Daniel felt every rule Hal had read aloud in October arrange itself in his mind. Miss Vance, this is my daughter Tess. Tess, this is Miss Vance, we are going downstairs. Tess did not move. She stared at the cream-colored paper star attached to the side of Elara's chair with a small piece of tape. You made that wrong, she said. Daniel exhaled slowly. Elara looked at the star. I have been told. The 5th fold is backward. I followed written instructions. Sometimes written instructions are bad. Elara's gaze shifted to Daniel. He looked at the ceiling. Tess stepped closer. Can I fix it? Tess, Daniel said. What? It is going to come apart. Elara considered the child with the same concentration she gave board documents. Then she held out the star. Tess unfolded it carefully on the nurse's desk. My mom taught me, she said. Daniel's chest tightened. Claire had taught Tess only the first 2 folds. Daniel had learned the rest from a library book after she died. Tess remembered the story differently because it was kinder that way. Elara's voice softened by 1 degree. Where is your mother? Tess kept her eyes on the paper. She died. Maribel looked down. Daniel did not interrupt. Tess pressed a crease with her thumbnail. Dad says people do not disappear all at once. They stay in things they showed you. Elara looked at Daniel. He had said that once on a bad night. He had not known Tess remembered. What does she stay in? Elara asked. Stars, pancakes, the song Dad skips in the van. Tess, he does. Elara's mouth moved. This time, it was unmistakably a smile. Tess finished the fold and placed the star in Elara's palm. There, now it can hold together. Elara stared at it. Thank you. You are welcome. Tess glanced at the blanket over Elara's legs, then back at her face. Does it hurt? Daniel stepped forward. That is enough. Elara raised 1 hand. Sometimes, she said, my dad's chest hurts when he misses my mom. Tess, not his real chest, Tess explained. The inside part. Elara's fingers closed around the paper star. I know that kind. Tess nodded, satisfied. Then you should keep this one. That was the night Elara Vance's wall developed its first real crack. The roads remained closed until noon on Christmas Day. Tess slept on 2 chairs pushed together in the staff lounge. Daniel covered her with his coat and finished his shift. Before they left, Elara sent Maribel downstairs with a box containing breakfast, a new set of colored paper, and a replacement dollar for the vending machine. Tess accepted the paper. She refused the dollar. It should come from the machine, she said. Elara heard about this later and instructed hospital administration to replace the vending company. Daniel told her that was excessive. The machine stole from a child, she said. The machine malfunctioned. You sound like its attorney. The new machine arrived in January. It became a joke between them, though neither called it one. January also brought a change in Elara's therapy. The 16th specialist had recommended reducing her program. He believed the repeated attempts at standing created pain without meaningful gain. Elara agreed in public. In private, she asked Maribel to find a therapist who would work after normal hours. Daniel discovered this because he entered the therapy room at midnight and found Elara gripping parallel bars while a young therapist named Neha Malik supported her hips. Her arms trembled. Sweat darkened the collar of her gray shirt. Her legs remained still. Daniel stepped backward. Elara saw him in the mirror. "Close the door," she said. He did. From the hall, he heard Neha count to 5, then to 8. Then Elara made a sound low in her throat, and the bars shook. Daniel moved farther away. He cleaned the conference room twice. When the therapy door finally opened, Neha pushed an empty equipment cart toward the elevator. Elara followed slowly. Daniel pretended to be checking a light fixture. "You can stop performing," Elara said. He looked down. Her face was pale. Her hands were wrapped in athletic tape. "How did it go?" "Badly. All right." I held myself upright for 11 seconds. That does not sound like nothing. My arms held me. My legs did not. I did not say your legs did it. Elara looked toward the window. Neha says the muscle response in my left thigh is inconsistent with the final diagnosis. Daniel waited. She also says inconsistent does not mean useful. Both can be true. I hate when you say things like that. I know. It sounds reasonable. That must be difficult. She gave him a tired look. Tess would have laughed at that. Tess laughs at spoons when she is tired. She is coming back? The question arrived too quickly. Elara looked annoyed with herself. Daniel pretended not to notice. Her school has a winter art night next Thursday. She asked whether I could bring someone. You have family. My mother has a church meeting. My sister works nights. That was not an invitation. No good, Daniel returned to the light fixture. It begins at 6:30. Elara stared at him. You are inviting a patient to your daughter's school event. I am telling you when it begins. What you do with the information is your business. She did not answer. The following Thursday, Daniel arrived at Tess's elementary school wearing the only jacket he owned that did not have a work logo on it. The gymnasium walls were covered in watercolor animals, cardboard cities, and portraits with heads too large for their bodies. Tess stood beside a display titled Places That Feel Safe. Her picture showed a small house under a yellow sky. 3 people stood in front of it. One had brown hair. One had a purple dress. The third sat in a chair with 2 large wheels. Daniel looked at the drawing for a long moment. Who is that? He asked. Tess pointed as if the answer were obvious. You, me, Miss Vance. Why is Miss Vance at our house? Because it is a safe place. Daniel crouched beside her. Sweetheart, Miss Vance is someone I know from work. I know. She is not part of our family. Tess frowned. I did not say family. I said safe. A voice behind Daniel said, that is an important distinction. He stood too quickly. Elara was near the gym doors wearing a dark green coat. Maribel stood behind her, holding a folded wheelchair ramp the school had apparently found in a storage closet. Students and parents were staring. Elara ignored them. Tess ran forward. You came. You issued a formal invitation through your father. He said he did not invite you. Your father communicates poorly. That is true. Daniel looked at Maribel. She smiled. I was off duty. Elara examined Tess's picture. Why am I wearing blue? Purple, Tess corrected. It looks blue. The purple was running out. Elara nodded as if this were reasonable. And why is your father taller than the house? Because he fixes things. That does not explain scale. It is art. Elara looked at Daniel. I have been corrected. They stayed 40 minutes. Elara asked serious questions about every picture Tess showed her. She did not praise them all. When Tess presented a clay bird with one wing larger than the other, Elara said the imbalance made it look as if the bird were turning in the wind. Tess considered this and decided she had done it on purpose. On the drive home, she talked without breathing. Miss Vance knows about colors and buildings, and she said my bridge needs support underneath, but she did not say it mean, and she bought a cookie, but she did not eat it, and do you think she liked my safe place? Daniel kept his eyes on the road. I think she did. She looked sad. People can like something and be sad at the same time. Were you sad? A little. Because Mom was not in the picture? Daniel swallowed. Maybe. Tess went quiet. After several blocks, she said, Mom is in the stars. She does not have to stand in the yard. Daniel reached back and found her hand. At Graybridge, Elara placed Tess's drawing in her office. Not on the wall where visitors would see it. Inside the cabinet, behind the board packets. Daniel discovered it when she asked him to retrieve a charger from the lower shelf. He said nothing. That night, the photograph in Elara's bedroom was face up. It showed two women at the opening of a Vance Meridian dispatch center. Elara stood beside a woman with short red hair. Both wore hard hats. Both were laughing. Daniel did not ask. Elara told him anyway. Her name was Priya Dalan. They were in the sitting room. Snow tapped lightly against the windows. Daniel had finished cleaning, but remained because ice had closed the road to his mother's neighborhood. Elara held the photograph across her knees. She was my operations director. My friend. The only person at the company who told me no without preparing a speech first. Daniel sat in a chair near the door. Was she at the charity event? Yes. The word came flat. The platform was not ready. The event contractor asked for another hour. I refused. There were donors waiting, cameras, a schedule I had promised. Priya told me to delay. I told her we had checked it twice. Elara's thumb moved across the edge of the frame. She stepped onto it first. It collapsed beneath both of us. Daniel had read that another person was injured. The articles never named her. Did she survive? For 3 days. The room seemed to contract. Elara continued in the same controlled tone. Her husband came to the hospital. He stood beside my bed and said he did not blame me. That was worse. If he had shouted, I could have defended myself. If he had hated me, I could have accepted it. He said Priya had loved me like a sister and would not want me to carry it. She looked down at her legs. Then everyone started talking about what I had lost. Walking, privacy, the company. No one said her name. Daniel did not offer forgiveness. It was not his to give. You made the decision to open the platform? Yes. Did you know it would fail? No. Did the contractor know? Elara's eyes lifted. There were missing inspection records. The company dissolved 6 weeks later. Adrian handled the settlement. Did you see the records? No. I was in surgery. Then you know you made a bad decision. You do not know that you caused the collapse. That distinction keeps other people comfortable. Does it make it less true? Her face tightened. You think facts can clean guilt? No, I think guilt can collect facts that support it and throw away the rest. Elara looked toward the cabinet where Tess's drawing was hidden. Priya wanted me to build Northline. She said emergency systems were the only part of the company worth being remembered for. Then selling it would matter. Yes, and keeping it would not bring her back. No, both can be true. Elara closed her eyes. I still hate that sentence. I know. The basement leak started 3 weeks later. At 1:35 in the morning, an alarm sounded in the service corridor. A pipe above the old records room had split along a corroded joint. Water ran down the wall and across the concrete floor. Daniel and two maintenance workers shut off the branch line. Hal sent the night cleaning crew to move boxes away from the water. Graybridge had digitized most records years earlier, but the basement still held archived films, billing files, and sealed transfer boxes from hospitals that no longer existed. The room smelled of wet paper and metal shelves. Daniel worked from the lowest row upward. Lift, carry, stack, mark the damaged corner. Move to the next. At 2:07, he pulled a cabinet away from the wall and found a thin envelope trapped underneath. One corner had gone soft from water. The top bore the faded logo of Lakeshore County Medical Center, the hospital where Elara had first been treated after the platform collapse. The patient name was printed in black. Vance, Elara M. Across the top, in red ink, was the word urgent. Daniel looked toward Hal. This belongs with the transfer records. Hal glanced at the envelope, put it in the salvage bin. Records can decide. Daniel turned it over. The paper had torn enough to expose a typed sentence. Further imaging strongly recommended. Potentially reversible compression cannot be excluded. He read it twice. Hal? What? This says reversible. You reading medical records now? It is visible. Hal came closer, saw the name, and lowered his voice. Seal it. Do not discuss it. Why is it under a cabinet? Because basements are full of things people put in the wrong place. Daniel looked at the date. The report had been written 9 days after Elara's first surgery. Her current chart starts 12 days after the accident. Hal stared at him. How do you know that? Daniel remembered the dates printed on discarded appointment summaries, the conversations he had overheard, the board packet references. Details settled in his mind whether he invited them or not. I know. Hal took the envelope from him. You do not know what this means. Neither do you. Exactly, so Records handles it. He placed it in a sealed plastic pouch and carried it toward the door. Daniel returned to the cabinet. Beneath the rusted base, something reflected the work light. A compact disc in a clear plastic case. The label matched the report date. Vance Thorasich. Copy 2. Daniel picked it up. On the back of the case was a small white sticker. Hold for A. Vance. He felt something cold move through him. Adrian. Daniel did not put the disc in his pocket. He did not hide it. He carried it directly to Hal. This was with the report. Hal looked at the sticker. His expression changed. Give it to me. We need a chain of custody form. Since when do you care about records procedure? Since a patient's missing scan turned up under a cabinet with her uncle's name on it. Hal stepped closer. Listen to me. You have a daughter. You need this job. Do not turn a wet box into a conspiracy because you know the patient. I do not know what it is. Then stop acting like you do. I know it was not in the chart. You cannot know that. Then records can prove me wrong. Daniel carried the disc to Maribel. By 3 lower in the morning, the hospital administrator had been called. By 3:20, security had closed the basement. By 4:05, the envelope and disc had been logged into evidence. At 5:10, Adrian Vance arrived at Graybridge. Daniel was waiting outside Hal's office. Adrian walked past without acknowledging him. 10 minutes later, Hal came out. You are suspended pending review. Daniel looked at him. For what? Unauthorized access to patient information. I found it during a signed cleanup. You read a confidential report. The envelope was torn. You discussed it with staff. I gave it to the charge nurse. Hal's face carried shame, which made the words worse. Turn in your badge. Daniel thought of the van. The rent. Tess's insurance. The envelope marked urgent. He removed the badge from his shirt. Will Miss Vance be told? Hal did not answer. That was an answer. Daniel left Graybridge as dawn spread gray across the parking lot. He drove to his mother's house and sat in the van for 7 minutes before going inside. Tess was awake at the kitchen table, folding a strip of yellow paper. Why are you early? She asked. Daniel took off his coat. There was a problem at work. Did you fix it? He looked at the star taking shape between her fingers. I found it, he said. I do not know if they will let me fix it. At Graybridge, Elara learned about the report from Adrian. He told her Daniel had stolen medical material from a restricted archive. He told her the janitor had become emotionally involved. He told her desperate people sometimes found patterns because they needed them to exist. Then he placed the sealed report on her desk and said the language had already been reviewed. Potentially reversible compression, Elara read. A preliminary observation made before the surgical team had complete imaging. It was ruled out. Where is the ruling out report? Adrian hesitated. Only slightly, Elara saw it. Where is it? The transfer file is incomplete. That is common after emergency care. Why was the scan labeled for you? Because I coordinated your records while you were unconscious. Why was it in the basement? Ask the janitor who moved it. Elara's hands tightened on the paper. Daniel does not move things without a reason. Adrian's face hardened. Daniel? She heard the mistake too late. Miss Vance, he said quietly, this is exactly what I was afraid of. What? You are isolated. You are angry. A man who cleaned your room has made himself useful, and now you are treating his suspicion as medical evidence. He found a missing scan. He found a disc in a flooded basement. You had him suspended. The hospital did. You arrived before sunrise. Because your name was attached to a privacy breach. Elara looked at him for a long time. Leave the report. I do not think that is wise. Leave it. Adrian placed it on the desk. The board vote is in 12 days. Do not let this become another example of poor judgment. When he left, Elara turned the paper star toward the wall. Then she turned it back. She called Maribel. Maribel answered on the second ring. I need Daniel Rook's number, Elara said. I am not permitted to give out employee information. He is suspended. That does not remove the rule. Maribel, the nurse, was silent for a moment. I can call him and ask whether he wants to speak with you. Do that. Daniel's phone rang while he was making scrambled eggs for Tess. He looked at the unknown number and let it go to voicemail. His mother watched him from the sink. You going to tell me what happened? After Tess leaves for school. That bad? Maybe. Tess carried her plate to the table. You put pepper in mine. Daniel looked at the eggs. Claire had liked pepper. Tess did not. Sorry. It is okay. I can eat around it. You cannot eat around pepper. I can try. The phone rang again. This time Maribel's name appeared. Daniel answered. Miss Vance wants to speak with you, Maribel said. He looked at Tess, who was separating eggs into suspicious and acceptable sections. Is she all right? She is angry. That sounds normal. Maribel lowered her voice. Not at you, I think. Elara came onto the line. Did you steal my records? Daniel closed his eyes. Good morning to you too. Answer me. No. Did you remove the disc from the basement? I removed it from beneath the cabinet during flood cleanup and gave it to Hal. Did you read the report? The envelope was torn. 2 lines were visible. Why did you not bring it directly to me? Because medical records have procedures, and because I am not allowed to carry confidential material through the building based on personal judgment. That concern did not prevent you from discussing it. I discussed it with Hal and Maribel. Both were working. Elara breathed out. Adrian says the observation was ruled out. Then there should be a report that says so. There is not. That seems important. Do you understand what the phrase means? No, then why are you so certain it matters? Daniel turned off the burner. I am not certain it changes your diagnosis. I am certain you should have been allowed to know it existed. Silence. Tess looked at him. He pointed toward her coat. Adrian says you have become attached to the idea of helping me. Your uncle has known me for about 40 seconds. He says men in your position sometimes confuse access with importance. Daniel's jaw tightened. My position? His words. Do you believe him? Elara did not answer at once. That pause hurt more than Daniel expected. I do not know what to believe, she said. Then find out. How? Ask someone who does not work for your uncle, your board, or Graybridge. The disc is in hospital custody. It belongs to your medical record. Request a copy. They can refuse while the privacy review is open. Daniel looked at the yellow paper star Tess had left near his keys. Then requested in writing. Make them explain the refusal in writing. People are careful when they have to put a reason on paper. Elara was quiet again. You sound as if you have done this before. I have argued with insurance companies. That may be harder. Usually her voice changed slightly. You lost your job because of this. I am suspended. Do you believe that distinction? Not especially. And you are not angry with me? You did not suspend me. My name did. Names do not make decisions. Elara said nothing. Daniel added, I am angry, just not at the wrong person. She ended the call without saying goodbye. By noon, Graybridge received a formal request from Elara's personal attorney for the disc, the report, the transfer log, and every audit record connected to both. By 5, the hospital agreed to release digital copies. At 7, Elara sent the files to Dr. Lena Shaw, a neurosurgeon in Denver who had never consulted for Graybridge, Vance Meridian, or Adrian Vance. Dr. Shaw replied the next morning. She asked for a high-resolution copy. Then she asked for the original operative notes. Then she asked why no one had performed a prone thoracic MRI after the first report. Elara did not know. 2 days later, Dr. Shaw appeared on a secure video call from a plain office with anatomical drawings pinned behind her. Elara sat at the conference table. Maribel stood near the door. Daniel joined from his mother's kitchen because Elara had insisted, and because Daniel had refused to come to Graybridge while suspended. Tess was at school. Dr. Shaw did not offer hope first. She offered facts. Your original injury was serious, she said. The fractures and bleeding were real. The first surgery stabilized the spine and relieved the immediate pressure. Nothing in this scan changes that. Elara's fingers rested on the table. Then what does it change? Dr. Shaw shared an image. To Daniel, it looked like gray clouds divided by a pale line. Here, she said, marking a point in red. This shape is sometimes called a scalpel sign. It can indicate a dorsal arachnoid web, a thin band of tissue that displaces the spinal cord. In your case, it may also include postoperative adhesion. May, Elara repeated. Yes, the image is not enough to diagnose it, but it was enough to require follow-up imaging. That recommendation was appropriate. Would it explain the inconsistent motor response? Possibly, it could explain why your neurological level has not behaved the way a complete, permanent injury usually behaves. Elara's face remained still. Daniel knew the stillness now. It meant she was holding too much. Can it be treated? She asked. If the web is present and accessible, surgery can release it. Some patients regain function. Some regain sensation without useful movement. Some do not improve. Surgery also carries risk of additional damage. How much risk? Enough that I will not discuss percentages before new imaging. But the case is not hopeless. Doctor. Shaw paused. Hopeless is not a medical diagnosis. Based on this missing scan and your current exam history, I would not have advised anyone to stop investigating. Elara looked away from the screen. For nearly 2 years, 15 doctors had spoken in different rooms with different accents and different levels of confidence. Some had been kind. Some had been impatient. All had worked from a file that began after the question that mattered. Daniel watched her absorb this. He did not smile. He did not say he had been right. He knew enough about loss to understand that hope could hurt when it arrived late. It carried every month that might have been different. Dr. Shaw ordered new scans in Denver. Graybridge's medical director objected to moving Elara in winter. Adrian objected to Dr. Shaw's lack of involvement in the original case. The company attorney objected to the cost being charged to Elara's executive medical plan. Elara listened to all 3 objections. Then she booked a private medical flight with her own money. Adrian responded by freezing access to 2 personal accounts under a financial protection agreement Elara had signed after her second surgery. She read the notice twice. He cannot do this, Maribel said. He can until a court tells him he cannot. The flight leaves tomorrow. Elara looked toward the office cabinet. Inside it was Tess's drawing of the safe place. Call Daniel, she said. He arrived at Graybridge at 9 that evening wearing jeans, work boots, and no badge. Security would not allow him beyond the lobby. Elara came down in the elevator with Maribel. It was the first time Daniel had seen her outside the 6th floor since the school art night. The lobby was full of people. Patients, visitors, staff who knew her name. She crossed the marble floor toward him. I need a driver, she said. To Denver? To Kansas City. Doctor, Shaw can arrange imaging there through a colleague. It is a 4-hour drive. Adrian cannot freeze a car. He can try. Will you take me? Daniel looked at Maribel. Medical transport? Elara refuses it, the nurse said. Medical transport reports to the company, Elara added. The company reports to Adrian. My van is not equipped for a wheelchair. The chair folds. I can transfer with a board. Maribel will come. Daniel imagined the highway at night, ice along the shoulders, Tess asleep at his mother's house, and a woman who had spent 22 months being moved by teams of professionals asking to ride in a van with a failing transmission. The heater only works on high, he said. I will survive. The passenger window whistles. Daniel? We leave at 5. The drive began before dawn. Maribel sat in the back with Elara's chair folded beside her. Elara sat in the passenger seat, wearing a dark wool coat and looking deeply offended by the van's cup holders. Daniel kept both hands on the wheel. For the first hour, no one spoke. At sunrise, Elara looked at the paper star hanging from the rearview mirror. Tess made that? Claire did. Daniel had kept it in 3 different cars. The paper had faded from yellow to cream. Your wife. Yes, you said Tess makes them. Claire started it. Tess continued. Elara watched the star turn gently with the movement of the van. Does that help? What? Continuing something. Daniel thought before answering. Sometimes it makes the empty place clearer. Both can be true. He glanced at her. She was looking out the window. At a rest stop outside Columbia, Maribel helped Elara transfer back into her chair. Daniel stood far enough away to preserve privacy, close enough to catch the board if it slipped. Elara's hand slid on the cold metal frame. Daniel reached without thinking and steadied her elbow. She froze. He released her at once. Sorry, you thought I was falling. You were. I had it. All right. She adjusted her coat. You can help when I ask. Understood. They went inside. The new imaging took 3 hours. Daniel waited in a plastic chair beside a window overlooking a parking garage. Maribel read a magazine without turning pages. When Elara returned, her face revealed nothing. Doctor. Shaw joined by video. Her colleague, Dr. Owen Beck, stood beside the screen. The new scan was clearer. The pale line had become a visible bend. There is a web, Doctor, Shaw said, and there is focal adhesion near the surgical site. The cord is displaced, but not severed. Elara's hands closed over the blanket. Not severed. Correct, then why can I not move? Because the cord has been injured and remains compressed. Releasing it does not erase the original injury. But the preserved pathways may explain the responses your therapist observed. Can you operate? Yes, will I walk? Dr. Shaw held her gaze through the screen. I do not know. Anyone who promises that is selling you something. The goal would be to stop further damage and create the best possible condition for recovery. Sensation may improve, spasms may decrease, motor function may improve, or it may not. What is the risk? There is a meaningful risk of losing the function you still have, including trunk control. There is a smaller risk of infection, bleeding, or worse neurological injury. Elara did not look at Daniel. How soon? Within weeks, not months. The longer the cord remains displaced, the less confident I am about recovery. Maribel covered her mouth with one hand. Daniel looked at the floor. 22 months. The missing report had not guaranteed a cure. It had guaranteed a choice. Someone had taken that choice from her. On the drive back, Elara did not speak until the St. Louis lights appeared in the distance. Adrian knew, she said. Daniel kept his eyes on the road. The sticker proves he had the disc. It does not prove he understood it. He understands every risk that threatens his control. Then prove what he knew. There will be emails. Maybe you still do not sound certain. Certainty is expensive. We should not spend it before we have it. Elara leaned back against the seat. Do you know what the worst part is? Daniel waited. I believed them. Not at first. I fought every word. Then one morning I woke up and realized I had arranged my life around never. I signed the protection agreement. I let Adrian take the company because I thought I was being responsible. I stopped asking about the missing days in the file. You trusted people who were supposed to know. That is another way of saying I stopped looking. No, it is another way of saying you were hurt and tired and surrounded by professionals. You are making excuses. I am separating guilt from evidence. She looked at him. Again. The next morning, Adrian filed an emergency petition claiming Elara was making dangerous medical and financial decisions under the influence of a recently terminated employee. Graybridge fired Daniel before lunch. The letter cited boundary violations, unauthorized handling of records, and inappropriate personal involvement with a patient. His health insurance would end at midnight on the last day of the month. Tess had an asthma appointment in 3 weeks. Daniel read the letter at his mother's kitchen table. Then he folded it once and placed it beside the salt shaker. His mother sat across from him. You could walk away, she said. I know. You have done more than anyone could ask. I know. This woman is rich. She has lawyers. She has nurses. She has people. Daniel looked through the doorway where Tess was doing homework on the living room floor. That is what everyone keeps saying. Is it not true? She has employees. She has a board. She has an uncle who speaks for her. I am not sure how many people she has. His mother reached across the table. And what are you? Daniel thought of Elara holding the crooked paper star in the therapy room. Tess's drawing inside the cabinet. Claire's faded star turning above the van dashboard. Someone who found a report, he said. His mother watched him carefully. That is not all. It has to be enough. Because this could not become rescue. Elara did not need Daniel to choose surgery. She did not need him to fight her uncle for her. She did not need a man with a broken van to become the center of a life she had built before he entered it. She needed the truth placed where she could reach it. What she did next had to belong to her. Elara understood the same thing before Daniel said it. When he called that evening, she answered from the conference room. The board packet was open in front of her. Her attorney, Camille Roth, sat across the table with a laptop. I heard about the termination, Elara said. News travels. I can have the decision challenged. Do not. They fired you because of me. They fired me because the hospital wants distance from the report. Fighting for my job turns the report into a dispute about me. You need insurance. Yes, then let me help. Daniel closed his eyes. No, the word landed differently now. Elara's voice cooled. Pride is expensive too. This is not pride. Then explain it. Your uncle is telling a court that I am influencing you. If you pay my bills, hire me, or send money through someone else, he will use it. Camille spoke from the background. He is right. Elara looked toward her attorney. Daniel continued, I found information. I told you what I saw. You got an independent opinion. Everything after that is your decision. It needs to stay your decision. And what are you going to do? Find another job? That is all? No. I will testify if your attorney asks. I will tell the truth. A long silence followed. You are leaving, Elara said. I am stepping out of the place your uncle wants me to occupy. That sounds like leaving. Daniel looked through his kitchen window at the dark yard. Elara, I am not disappearing. It was the first time he used her first name. Neither mentioned it. How would I know the difference? she asked. The question was quiet. Daniel thought of Claire, of the morning she had left the kitchen in an ambulance and never returned. Of Tess asking for months whether her mother knew the way home. Because I will answer when you call, he said. But I will not make your choices so you can blame me if they go wrong. Elara breathed in slowly. That is an unpleasant kind of loyalty. It is the only kind I trust. Camille asked Daniel to give a sworn statement 2 days later. He described the leak, the envelope, the disc, the sticker, and the sequence of people who received the material. He did not speculate about Adrian's motive. When Camille asked whether Elara had ever requested that he search for medical evidence, Daniel said no. When she asked whether he had encouraged surgery, he said no. What did you encourage? Camille asked. A complete answer. Adrian's attorney questioned him for 3 hours. He asked about Daniel's finances, his termination, his wife's death, his daughter. He asked whether Daniel had developed romantic feelings for Elara. Daniel looked at Camille. She gave no signal. I care what happens to her, he said. That was not my question. It is the answer I can give honestly. Do you find Ms. Vance attractive? Yes, the attorney leaned back. So you admit a personal interest. Attraction is not a medical opinion. You spent months in her private suite, cleaning it. You took her childlike gifts. Daniel's face changed. Paper stars. You introduced your daughter. A snowstorm introduced my daughter. You drove Miss Vance across the state after her family and care team objected. She asked for a ride to an independent medical appointment. She is an adult. An adult under a protection agreement. A protection agreement is not ownership. Camille placed a hand on the table. The attorney smiled slightly. No further questions. The emergency hearing took place the following Monday. Elara attended by video from Graybridge. Adrian sat in court beside 3 attorneys. Daniel sat behind Camille in a borrowed shirt that tightened at the neck. The judge did not decide whether surgery was wise. She decided whether Elara had capacity to make the decision without temporary oversight. Adrian's team presented edited clips from therapy sessions showing Elara in pain. They presented emails written after sleepless nights. They presented the fact that she had bypassed hospital transport and traveled in an old van with a terminated janitor. They did not present the independent neurological evaluation until Camille forced it into the record. Dr. Shaw testified that Elara understood the risks. Marable testified that Elara managed her medication, business calls, and care decisions without confusion. Daniel testified last. Adrian's attorney asked him whether Elara had ever cried in front of him. Daniel looked at the judge. Everyone has private moments. That is not an answer. Then I will not answer. The judge instructed him to respond. Daniel chose his words carefully. I have seen Miss Vance upset. I have never seen her unable to understand where she was, what was happening, or what a decision would cost. You are not qualified to assess capacity. No, yet you encouraged her to reject the conclusions of 15 doctors. I encouraged her to read a 16th report that should have been in front of the first 15. The courtroom went still. The judge granted a limited temporary order. Elara retained the right to ordinary medical care, but any high-risk surgery had to wait 30 days while an independent capacity evaluator reviewed the case. Adrian could not control her personal accounts, but the company protection agreement remained disputed. It was not victory. It was delay. Doctor, Shaw had said weeks, not months. Outside court, reporters gathered around Adrian. He spoke about family concern, patient safety, and the tragedy of vulnerable people being influenced by those seeking access to wealth. Daniel walked through a side exit. By evening, his name was online. Janitor at center of CEO medical dispute. Single father drove billionaire patient across state. Questions raised about inappropriate relationship. The next morning, Tess came home from school with a folded note in her pocket. Gold digger's kid. She did not understand the words. Daniel did. He sat on the edge of her bed and told her none of this was her fault. Tess listened with her serious eyes. Did Miss Vance do something bad? No. Did you? No, then why are people mean? Daniel looked at the paper star taped above her lamp. Sometimes a simple story is easier than a true one. What is the simple story? That I want something from her. Do you? He thought before answering. I want her to get the choice she should have had. Tess frowned. That is not something you can keep. No, then it is a dumb story. Yes, she leaned against him. Can I stay home tomorrow? Yes, he held her until she fell asleep. The next day, Daniel stopped answering Elara's calls. Not because he blamed her, because every call connected Tess to the story. He told himself distance was protection. For 4 days, he applied for jobs. Office cleaning, hotel maintenance, school custodial work. He accepted a temporary overnight position at a distribution warehouse 40 minutes from home. The pay was lower. The insurance would begin after 90 days. He took it. On the 5th day, a black car parked outside his mother's house. Elara was in the back seat. Daniel saw her through the kitchen window and felt anger rise before he could stop it. He went outside without a coat. You cannot be here. Elara opened the door but did not move to transfer. You stopped answering. Tess was targeted at school. The word struck her. I did not know. Now you do. Is she all right? She will be. Elara looked toward the house. I am sorry. I know. Adrian's public relations team placed the stories. Camille traced 2 reporters to the same consultant. That does not erase them. No, Daniel folded his arms against the cold. You need to go. Elara's face became still. Is that what you want? It is what Tess needs. Do not use her to avoid answering. His anger sharpened. You do not get to tell me how to protect my daughter. No, I do not. The immediate agreement took the force out of him. Elara looked down at her hands. But you told me you would answer when I called. Daniel said nothing. You made a distinction between leaving and stepping aside, she continued. I believed you. Things changed. Things always change when staying becomes expensive. Her voice was controlled, but he heard the old wound beneath it. 15 doctors. A board that had waited her out. An uncle who had turned care into control. A friend who had died after Elara had refused 1 hour of delay. Daniel looked toward the window. Tess stood behind the curtain, watching. I am not afraid of the cost to me, he said. I am afraid of the cost to her. Elara followed his gaze. Then let me speak to her. No. Daniel. No. She is 7. She does not need to carry adult consequences because she folded you a star. Elara closed her eyes. You are right. Again, the agreement was worse than argument. She reached into the car and took out a large envelope. This is not money. It is not a job offer. Camille found a gap in the hospital transfer inventory. 1 box from Lakeshore was signed into Graybridge, but never scanned into records. The number is on the page. Daniel did not take it. Why bring it to me? Because the box was moved through facilities, not medical records. The inventory code includes a room and a work order number. No one can interpret the old maintenance system. Graybridge says the software was replaced. Ask Hal. Hal says he does not remember. He is afraid. Yes, and you think I remember every work order code in a building? No, I think you notice systems people treat as invisible. Daniel stared at the envelope. This was what Adrian's lawyers wanted. A janitor reaching into matters beyond his place. A lonely man making himself necessary. Elara seemed to read the thought. Say no, she said. If that is your choice, say it. I will not punish you. I will not call again. Daniel looked at her. But do not disappear and call it protection. The wind moved through the bare trees. Tess opened the front door. Dad? Daniel turned. She stepped onto the porch in socks. Inside, he said. Miss Vance looks cold. Tess, she does. Elara gave a small, helpless laugh. Tess looked at her father. Mom said being scared and being wrong can happen together. Daniel felt the sentence like a hand against his chest. Claire had said it during a thunderstorm when Tess was 3. He had forgotten. Tess had not. Daniel took the envelope. 5 minutes, he told Elara. Then you leave. They sat at his mother's kitchen table while Tess colored in the next room. The inventory sheet listed a transfer box, LKM7214, assigned to temporary storage code B2M17 under Work Order 1846C. Daniel recognized the structure. B2 is basement level 2. M17 is not a room, it is a movable fixture. A cabinet, Elara said. Maybe the old system numbered any installed item that needed inspection. Cabinets, shelving, fire doors. Work Order C means relocation, not repair. Can you find where it was moved? The paper ticket would have the destination. The paper ticket is gone. Daniel studied the code. Not necessarily. Graybridge's digital maintenance system had changed 4 years earlier, but old completed work orders were kept on microfilm for insurance audits. The reels were stored off-site by a vendor. Camille subpoenaed Work Order 1846C. 2 days later, the image arrived. Move cabinet M17 A&D contents from B2 records to executive storage 6E. Requested by A. Vance, no inventory review. The work had been completed 19 months earlier, after Elara's transfer. After the preliminary report disappeared. Before Adrian became interim chief executive, Camille obtained an order allowing an independent records officer to inspect executive storage 6E. The room had been converted into a private file area near Elara's suite. The cabinet was still there, bolted to the wall behind stacks of company documents. Inside was the missing transfer box. It contained the original surgical consultation, the radiologist's urgent note, a request for prone imaging, and an email printed on Vance Meridian letterhead. The email was from the first neurosurgeon to Adrian. The finding may be surgically addressable, but further intervention carries substantial risk. Ms. Vance must be informed when she is medically stable enough to decide. At the bottom, Adrian had written by hand, hold. No additional procedure until corporate transition is secure. The truth was no longer a torn sentence in a wet basement. It was a decision. A choice taken from Elara and stored 6 floors below the room where she had spent 22 months being told there was none. When Camille read the note aloud, Elara did not cry. She became very still. Corporate transition, she said. Daniel sat across from her in Camille's office. It was the first time they had been in the same room since the argument outside his mother's house. He was protecting the company, Elara continued. That is what he will say. The surgery was risky. I was unstable. The board needed continuity. Camille closed the file. He denied you informed consent and concealed a medical record. We can ask the court to dissolve the protection agreement immediately. Do it. We can also refer the matter for criminal investigation. Elara looked at Daniel. What would you do? He shook his head. Do not give me that choice. Why? Because you are the one he harmed. You lost your job. Tess was hurt. That does not make your decision mine. Elara looked down at the email. I want the record corrected. I want the court order gone. I want him removed from the company. After that, investigators can decide what law he broke. Camille nodded. Daniel saw something change in Elara's face. Not forgiveness. Direction. For the first time since he had known her, she was not arranging her life around never. She was arranging it around next. The court dissolved the temporary order 3 days later. The judge's written decision was only 11 pages. Elara read every one. The protection agreement had been obtained without full disclosure. Adrian's petition had relied on a medical history he knew was incomplete. Elara had demonstrated clear understanding of the proposed surgery, its risks, and the alternatives. The final sentence returned authority to her immediately. Not because she was likely to make the right choice, because the choice was hers. Adrian resigned from Vance Meridian that afternoon. He called it a temporary leave while the board reviewed new information. No one believed the wording, but Elara did not correct him. She did not hold a press conference. She did not release the handwritten note. She sent the board the court decision, the complete medical file, and a request for an emergency meeting. Then she scheduled surgery in Denver for 18 days later. Daniel learned the date from Elara herself. They met at a quiet diner near his mother's house. It had wide aisles, a ramp that was too steep, and coffee that arrived before anyone ordered it. Elara examined the table as if it had personally disappointed her. "It rocks," she said. Daniel folded a napkin and placed it beneath one leg. "Now it doesn't. You carry solutions to furniture problems? I have worked in buildings." She looked at the folded napkin. "That is not a permanent repair. It only needs to last through breakfast." The waitress brought menus. Elara ordered tea. Daniel ordered eggs and toast because they were the cheapest complete meal on the page. "The surgery is February 19th, she said. "All right. That is all? Do you want me to tell you not to be afraid?" "No." "Do you want me to say it will work?" "No." "Then February 19th is a fact." Elara turned the tea bag string around one finger. "Will you come?" Daniel looked at her. "To Denver? Maribel will be there. Camille too for the first day. I am not asking you to manage anything." "What are you asking?" Her eyes remained on the cup. "To be in the waiting room when I wake up." The honesty of it moved through him slowly. Daniel thought about Tess, the warehouse schedule, the rumors that had not entirely disappeared, the careful distance he had tried to build. Then he thought about the word hold written beneath a surgeon's warning. About a woman waking from one surgery and learning later that someone else had decided she would not be offered another. "Yes," he said. Elara nodded. The waitress placed Daniel's plate on the table. "There is something else," Elara said. "There usually is. I need help with Northline." Daniel picked up his fork. "I know nothing about routing software. You know why the 6th-floor drinking fountain leaked. That is not transferable. You noticed a loose ground pin, a missing inventory box, and a maintenance code no executive understood. You see the last part of systems. The part after experts believe the work is finished." Daniel waited. Elara opened a slim folder. Northline can route an ambulance to the right hospital entrance. It can calculate traffic, capacity, and weather. But it assumes the entrance is open. It assumes the elevator works. It assumes a temporary construction wall has not blocked the corridor to imaging. Those things change every day. Exactly. Hospital administrators update official systems slowly. Facilities staff know immediately. Custodians know before facilities because they walk every corridor. Daniel looked at the diagram in the folder. A route ended at a red square labeled destination. "The last door," he said. "What?" "The software gets the vehicle across the city, but not through the last door." Elara's expression sharpened with interest. "Say that again." "No." "You heard it." She took a pen and wrote the last door across the top of the page. "We could build a verified facility layer. Elevator outages, locked entrances, internal detours, loading restrictions. Simple reports from people already in the building. People like janitors. People like you." Daniel set down his fork. "I will not become evidence for Adrian's story. Adrian no longer controls the story. The board has not voted. Then we disclose everything. A fixed consulting rate. No gifts, no private stock arrangement. Camille writes the contract. Independent audit. You have already planned this. I planned the safeguards. I did not know whether you would say yes. Why me?" Elara looked at him with a directness that removed every easy answer. "Because you understand that invisible work is still work. Because you do not confuse helping with owning. And because when everyone important in the room accepted a puddle, you looked for the valve." Daniel looked down at his untouched toast. "I have a temporary job. Keep it until the board approves the contract. Tess comes first. Put that in writing. I am serious. So am I. School pickups, asthma appointments, emergencies. No one will treat your daughter as divided attention." Daniel heard an echo of a conversation he had never had, but many single parents had. The quiet demand to pretend a child did not create needs. "I will review the contract," he said. Elara wrote something else in the folder. "What now?" Possible, the last door project began at Daniel's kitchen table. Tess believed she was part of the design team because she supplied colored markers. Daniel did not correct her. Elara joined by video from Graybridge. She had moved out of the private suite and into a standard accessible apartment near the therapy wing while preparing for surgery. She said the smaller room was practical. Daniel suspected the sixth-floor office had become too full of Adrian's decisions. They mapped the information a driver needed after reaching hospital property. Which entrance accepted emergency transfers after hours? Which elevator could hold a stretcher? Whether a skybridge was closed? Whether construction blocked the usual path? Whether an access code had changed? Daniel called 3 former co-workers from the hotel and 2 custodians he knew through a local union training course. Elara called hospital operations directors who owed her favors. The first answers did not match. Administrators said one entrance was open 24 hours. A night custodian said security locked it after 11 because the camera had been broken for 6 months. A facility map showed 2 working elevators. An evening cleaner said one had stopped level with the 4th floor and had not passed inspection. An official route crossed a covered walkway. A maintenance technician said ice collected there whenever the temperature fell below 20 degrees. Elara stared at the discrepancies. Northline has been using official data. Official data is what a building meant to be, Daniel said. Night work shows what it is. Tess looked up from coloring. Buildings lie? Not on purpose, Daniel said. People forget to tell the map, she decided. Elara wrote that down too. Within 10 days, they built a simple reporting method. No complicated software. A secure form with location, time, issue, expected duration, and 1 photograph. Every report required confirmation from a second authorized worker before Northline changed a route. Elara named the verification system Lantern. Daniel objected. It sounds expensive. It sounds visible. Tess held up a yellow paper star. Stars are better than lanterns. Stars are not operational tools, Elara said. They help people know where they are. Elara looked at Daniel. She negotiates like you. She wins more often. They kept Lantern. The pilot used 5 hospitals around St. Louis. In the first week, the system diverted an ambulance from a closed ambulance bay before the driver reached hospital property. It flagged an elevator outage that would have added 9 minutes to a stroke transfer. It redirected a pediatric team around a burst pipe in a basement corridor. 9 minutes. The number silenced the room when Elara presented it to the board. She joined the emergency meeting by video from Graybridge. Daniel sat beside Camille in a separate office. His consulting agreement was displayed on the screen before the project results, so no one could claim hidden influence. Helen Shore asked the first question. Why was this not part of Northline before? Elara answered without defensiveness. Because we designed from executive data down. We did not design from the floor up. And Mr. Rook identified the gap? Mr. Rook named it and built the reporting logic with our operations team. A director named Paul Dresser leaned toward his camera. He is a janitor. Daniel felt the old word sharpen in the room. Elara did not. He was a janitor at Graybridge, she said. Before that, he maintained a 400-room hotel. He understands physical systems, shift work, and what happens when official instructions meet locked doors. If you are asking whether he has an advanced degree, no. If you are asking whether the pilot data is valid, the answer is in front of you. Helen Shore looked at the 9-minute reduction again. What is the commercial value? Elara explained that Lantern could make Northline harder to reproduce, not easier. The buyer's offer had valued the software as a routing engine. It had not valued a verified national facility network because that network did not yet exist. We should not sell the engine, she said. We should finish the road. The board voted 7-2 to reject the sale. Then it voted 6-3 to restore Elara as chief executive after medical leave, with an interim operating officer handling daily management during surgery and recovery. No one applauded. Elara did not ask them to. Adrian's name disappeared from the company website by evening. Daniel received a formal contract for Director of Field Systems, conditional on completing a 6-month training program in health data compliance and operations management. The salary was more than he had ever earned. He read the number 3 times. Then he read the school pickup clause. It was exactly as Elara had promised. He signed. 2 days before surgery, Elara came to Daniel's house for dinner. Not his mother's house. The small rental had a porch light that flickered when the wind was strong, and a kitchen table with one chair that did not match the others. Daniel had cleaned everything twice. Tess had covered the refrigerator with paper stars. Elara arrived with Maribel, transferred into her chair, and dismissed the driver until 9. "You can stay," Daniel told Maribel. "I know," the nurse said. "I have plans." She left before either adult could object. Tess served spaghetti. Most of it reached the plates. Elara ate one full helping and accepted a second. She listened while Tess explained a disagreement between two girls at school involving a pencil, a promise, and a birthday invitation. "What should I do?" Tess asked. Elara considered the question seriously. Ask the girl what she wants corrected. An apology is useless if it repairs the wrong thing. Tess nodded. Daniel looked at Elara. "That is good advice. I occasionally have useful thoughts." After dinner, Tess brought out the places that feel safe picture from art night. She had changed it. The 3 figures still stood in front of the house, but now a 4th shape appeared above them. A yellow star. "That is Mom," Tess said. Elara touched the edge of the paper. "I thought she was already in the stars. This is the one we can see." Daniel turned toward the sink because he needed a moment no one observed. Later, after Tess went to bed, Elara sat in the living room beneath the clicking ceiling fan. Daniel brought 2 mugs of tea. "The surgery may not change anything," she said. "I know. It may make things worse. I know. I could lose trunk control. I could need more help than I need now." Daniel sat across from her. "I know. Stop saying that. What would you prefer?" "I do not know." The answer came with anger, then fear. Elara looked down at her hands. "Everyone wants me to be grateful that there is a possibility. Camille, Maribel, the board. Reporters who learned the word arachnoid yesterday. They speak as if possibility is a gift. It is also a knife. Before the report, I knew what tomorrow required. Now every future divides into versions." Daniel rested his mug on the table. "When Claire died, people told me I was lucky to have Tess." Elara looked up. "That was cruel. They meant well. They thought gratitude and grief could not occupy the same room. Could they? They had to." He leaned forward. "You can be grateful the choice exists and hate that it took this long. You can want the surgery and be afraid of it. You can hope and still prepare for it not to work. Both can be true." Unfortunately, Elara's eyes filled. She did not turn away. "I do not know who I will be if I wake up unchanged." Daniel answered carefully. "The same person who built Northline from a chair. The same person who listened when a 7-year-old corrected her paper folding. The same person who went to court to get her own choice back. And if it works, then you will still be all of those things." A tear moved down her cheek. Daniel did not reach for her. Elara extended her hand across the space between them. He took it. Her fingers were cold. They stayed that way until the ceiling fan clicked through another full turn. "I care about you," she said. The words were almost severe. Daniel's thumb moved once across her knuckles. "I care about you too. That is inconvenient. Very. I do not want gratitude mistaken for love. Neither do I. I do not want you staying because you think you found me." "I found a disc." Her mouth trembled into a smile. "You found more than that. Maybe certainty is expensive?" You remembered. Elara tightened her hand around his. "Then we do not spend it yet." Daniel nodded. They did not kiss. The restraint was not distance. It was respect for everything the next 2 days might change. The morning of surgery began in darkness. Denver had received 6 inches of snow overnight. Streetlights reflected off the hospital windows. Daniel arrived at 4:50 with coffee he did not drink and a paper star Tess had folded from a page of her math homework. Elara was already in preoperative holding. Maribel sat beside her. Dr. Shaw stood at the foot of the bed, reviewing the procedure one last time. "We will remove the section of web and release the adhesion," she said. Neuromonitoring will track the cord throughout. If the signals change in a way I do not like, I stop. Even if you are close? Elara asked. Especially if I am close. How long? 4 to 7 hours. Elara nodded. The nurse asked whether she wanted anything placed with her belongings. Elara looked at Daniel. He held up Tess's star. She said it is for navigation. In a hospital? She has concerns about maps. Elara took the star and folded her fingers around it. Maribel left to speak with the nurse. For a moment, Daniel and Elara were alone. You came, she said. I said I would. People say many things before 5 in the morning. I try not to. She looked at him for a long time. If I wake up and nothing has changed, do not look disappointed. Daniel moved closer to the bed. I will be disappointed for you if you are disappointed. I will not be disappointed in you. Her eyes closed briefly. That is acceptable. High praise. The orderly arrived. Elara held the paper star against the blanket until the bed began to move. At the doors to the surgical corridor, she reached for Daniel's hand. He walked beside her until the nurse told him to stop. Then, Elara let go. The doors closed. The first hour passed slowly. The second passed more slowly. Daniel sat in the waiting room beside Maribel. Camille arrived from the airport at 7 and opened her laptop without pretending she could work. At 8, Dr. Shaw's coordinator reported that the exposure was complete and monitoring signals were stable. At 9:30, there was no update. At 10:15, Daniel walked to the vending machines and stood in front of them without buying anything. A yellow paper star was taped above the coin slot. He stared at it. Tess had sent a packet of them with Maribel for the nursing staff. One had traveled farther than anyone intended. Daniel returned to the waiting room. At 11:40, the coordinator called Camille's name. All three stood. The surgeon is closing, she said. Monitoring remained stable. Dr. Shaw will speak with you soon. Stable, not better, not worse. A fact. Dr. Shaw appeared 28 minutes later, wearing a blue surgical cap and the expression of someone who measured words before using them. We found a dense arachnoid web at T6 and significant adhesion along the old surgical site, she said. The cord was visibly displaced. We released both. The monitoring signals improved modestly after decompression, but that does not predict functional recovery. Maribel gripped the back of a chair. She is all right? She is stable. She will spend tonight in intensive care. The next 72 hours are about swelling, pain control, and protecting the repair. Do not test movements. Do not ask her to prove anything. Daniel nodded. Dr. Shaw looked at him. That instruction is for everyone. Understood. Elara woke after sunset. The room was dim. Machines marked time in green lines and quiet tones. Daniel sat near the window with his coat folded across his lap. Her eyes opened, closed, then opened again. What time? She whispered. 7:12. Did she find it? Yes. Did she remove it? Yes, Elara swallowed. Can I move? Daniel remembered Dr. Shaw's warning. No tests tonight. That means no. It means the surgeon said no tests tonight. Daniel, he leaned forward. The operation did what it was meant to do. The cord is no longer compressed. Everything after that takes time. Elara stared at the ceiling. A tear escaped toward her ear. I cannot feel anything different. All right. Do not say that. What should I say? Lie. Daniel's chest tightened. You would hate me tomorrow. Probably, then no. She turned her face toward him. You are still irritating. The surgery did not change everything. Her eyes closed. Daniel remained until she slept. The first day brought pain. The second brought fever that proved to be a normal inflammatory response. The third brought nothing anyone could call recovery. Elara could not identify touch below her ribs. Her legs moved with the same involuntary spasms as before. Dr. Shaw repeated that the cord had been compressed for nearly 2 years. Nerves did not follow board schedules. Elara listened with a blank face. After the doctor left, She asked everyone else to leave too. Daniel went. He returned that evening and found the paper star in the trash. He looked at it, then at Elara. "Do not," she said. Daniel picked it up. "It is Tessa's math homework. Then she should receive a better grade for it than I did." This was not a test. Everything is a test when someone measures the result. Daniel smoothed one crushed point. "You got your choice back, and chose this." Yes, what if Adrian was right about the risk? He was wrong to decide for you even if the outcome is bad. That is a clean moral answer. The medical answer is messier. Elara looked toward the dark window. "I thought knowing the truth would feel different. Truth does not promise comfort. Then what good is it?" Daniel placed the repaired star on the bedside table. "It lets the next choice belong to you too." The next choice was rehabilitation. Elara could refuse. No one would call it denial. Dr. Shaw had removed the compression. The rest was uncertain. Elara began therapy the following morning. Not because she felt hopeful. Because she was angry. Anger was enough to start. For 2 weeks, nothing visible changed. Daniel returned to St. Louis and began the Vance Meridian training program. Tess went back to school after the principal addressed the note, and the public story shifted from scandal to concealed medical records. Reporters requested interviews. Daniel declined all of them. Elara issued one statement. A complete medical record is not a privilege. It is part of informed choice. My treatment remains private. The company's work continues. She did not mention Adrian. She did not mention Daniel. He was grateful for both omissions. Every evening they spoke by video. Some calls lasted 3 minutes. "Therapy?" he would ask. "Terrible? Work? Less terrible. Food? Criminal? Good night." Other calls lasted hours. They discussed lantern reports, Tess's school project, Elara's fear that the board saw her return as temporary, and Daniel's difficulty learning to read software diagrams without treating every box as a room. They did not speak often about recovery. On the 18th day after surgery, Elara called at 6:03 in the morning. Daniel was packing Tess's lunch. "Are you alone?" Elara asked. "Tess is brushing her teeth. Point the camera down." Daniel set the phone against the fruit bowl. Elara sat on the edge of a therapy table in Denver. Neha had traveled to join Dr. Shaw's rehabilitation team. Maribel stood beside the bars. "What am I looking at?" Daniel asked. "My left foot. It rested on a rubber mat." For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, the largest toe lifted. Not a spasm. Slow, uneven, deliberate, it rose less than half an inch and dropped. Daniel stopped breathing. "Again," Elara said. The toe moved a second time. Maribel covered her mouth. Neha smiled but did not clap. Daniel sat down in the nearest chair. Elara's face on the screen was fierce and terrified. "I told it to move," she said. "I know. I felt pressure, not touch. Pressure, I know. Say something else." Daniel's eyes burned. "Good morning, Elara." She laughed. It broke into tears halfway through. Daniel cried too, quietly, beside a lunchbox shaped like a fox. Tess entered with toothpaste at the corner of her mouth. "What happened?" Daniel turned the phone toward her. Elara lifted her toe again. Tess watched. "That is small," she said. Maribel laughed through her tears. Tess added, "Small things still count." Elara nodded. "Yes," she said, "they do." Recovery did not become a straight line after that. The toe moved on Tuesday and barely moved Wednesday. Sensation appeared as pressure, then vanished for 2 days. Elara developed nerve pain that felt like heat beneath the skin. Her right leg remained mostly silent. At 6 weeks, she could activate part of her left thigh. At 9 weeks, she stood between parallel bars with braces and 3 people supporting her. Her arms carried most of the weight. Her legs carried some. 4 seconds, then 6, then 12. No one called it walking. No one needed to. The public vindication came without a stage. Vance Meridian launched Lantern in 30 hospitals. Northline's transfer delays fell by an average of 11%. 2 state emergency networks signed pilot agreements. Helen Shore became board chair. Adrian sold his remaining shares through a blind transaction and left the company he had tried to keep. There was no final confrontation. Elara did not need one. His office was emptied. His access ended. The decisions moved forward without him. Quietly, Daniel's new office was on the ground floor of Vance Meridian headquarters, close to the operations room and far from the executive level. He chose it because field technicians used the side entrance. The first item he placed on his desk was a yellow paper star. The second was a photograph of Tess. The third was a small sign she had made in purple marker. People forget to tell the map. Elara returned to St. Louis in May. She still used her wheelchair. She could stand with braces and support. Her doctors would not predict how much more function would return. The uncertainty no longer ruled every room. At the airport, Daniel and Tess waited near the accessible pickup lane. Tess held a bouquet of paper flowers because real flowers made Elara sneeze. When the van door opened, Elara looked at Daniel first, then at Tess, then at the old vehicle behind them. You still have not replaced it. The transmission remains emotionally committed. That is not how machinery works. Tess hugged her before the argument could continue. Elara closed her eyes and held the child tightly. Daniel helped with the luggage only after she asked. At his house that evening, they ate the same spaghetti Tess had served before surgery. Elara sat at the kitchen table in her chair. The safe place picture hung on the wall. After dinner, Tess went to her room to finish reading. Daniel and Elara sat on the porch. Evening light moved through the trees. The porch bulb flickered once. You need to replace that fixture, Elara said. I was waiting for an executive opinion. You have it. Daniel smiled. Elara rested her hands on the wheel rims. I can stand for 31 seconds now, I heard. Maribel tells you everything, only important things. She says you asked her not to send videos. I want you to decide which moments are mine to see. Elara looked toward the yard. Tomorrow therapy room at 10. I will be there. Test 2. School Saturday. Daniel realized she had planned the date. All right. Elara turned toward him. There is another choice I have been delaying. Medical? No. Business? No. He waited. She reached for his hand. I do not love you because you found the report. Daniel's breath changed. Good, I do not love you because you stayed in waiting rooms or drove the van or helped build Lantern. This is becoming less flattering. Be quiet. He did. I love you because you never treated my life as a problem that would make you important if you solved it. You gave me information. You argued. You left when staying would have made the choice yours. Then you came back when I asked. Daniel looked at their joined hands. I love you too. For what reason? Do I need documentation? Yes, he turned toward her. Because you learned to let facts change you without letting them define you. Because you listened to Tess as if she is a whole person. Because you built a company, lost it, and built the part that mattered again. Because you are difficult. That last reason is questionable. It is load-bearing. Elara laughed. Daniel leaned closer, slowly enough for her to choose the remaining distance. She did. Their first kiss was quiet. No one witnessed it except the moth circling the bad porch lights. The following morning, Elara stood between parallel bars in the Vance Meridian Rehabilitation Lab. Daniel stood on one side. Neha stood on the other. Tess waited beyond the bars, holding a yellow star against her chest. Elara wore braces beneath dark athletic clothes. Her hands gripped the rails. Her face was pale with concentration. 31 seconds, Neha said. No more. Elara pushed upward. Her arms straightened. Her knees locked into the braces. Her body rose. Daniel did not lift her. He kept one hand close to her elbow without touching. Elara reached full height. For the first time, Daniel saw her standing. She was taller than he had imagined. Tess smiled. You look like the picture now. Elara's eyes moved to the child. 5 seconds. 10. Her left leg shook. Daniel stayed close. 15. Elara looked at him, not for rescue, for witness. 20. Her breath came hard. 25. Neha began counting aloud. 28, 29, 30, 31. Elara lowered herself into the chair. The room remained quiet. She had requested no applause. Tess walked forward and placed the paper star in her lap. Now it can hold together, she said. Elara touched the repaired folds. Yes, she answered. Now it can. People later told the story in simpler ways. They said 15 doctors called a woman hopeless and a janitor proved them wrong. That was not quite true. The doctors had worked from incomplete information. The janitor had not performed surgery. He had not read the scan or named the condition. He had not made damaged nerves recover. What Daniel did was smaller and harder to celebrate properly. He noticed that a record was where it should not be. He refused to pretend that rank determined who was allowed to ask why. He carried the evidence to people qualified to understand it. Then, when the woman at the center of the case had to choose what came next, he stepped back far enough for the choice to remain hers. That was not rescue. It was refusal. A refusal to treat a conclusion as complete when the file was incomplete. A refusal to confuse care with control. A refusal to believe invisible work had no value because powerful people did not see it. Elara's recovery continued in inches. Some months gave her movement. Some took it back. She eventually crossed short rooms with braces and forearm crutches, but she still used her chair for distance and long days. The chair did not represent failure. Walking did not represent worth. Her real recovery had begun before the first toe moved. It began when the truth returned her right to decide. Northline and Lantern grew into a national network. Hospitals began paying custodians, transport workers, security officers, and maintenance teams for verified facility reports instead of expecting invisible labor for free. The people who knew which doors were locked finally had a place in the map. Daniel led that work. He never stopped noticing loose valves, damaged plugs, or forms placed in the wrong drawer. His title changed. The habit did not. Tess grew older and became less impressed by paper stars, though she continued folding them when she thought no one watched. One remained above the kitchen table in the house Daniel and Elara eventually shared. The safe place drawing hung beneath it. 4 figures stood in the yard now. Daniel, Tess, Elara, and the yellow star Claire had become in a child's understanding of love. No one was replaced. The family simply made room. The story was never clean enough to fit comfortably inside a headline. There were still hearings, insurance forms, scar tissue, difficult mornings, and nights when Elara woke angry at the time that had been taken from her. Daniel still worried about money even after the new salary began, because fear learned over years did not disappear with one contract. Tess still missed her mother at unexpected moments. A family forming did not erase the family that had been broken. But their lives no longer required erasure to make room for hope. Grief could sit beside gratitude. A wheelchair could sit beside a pair of braces. A janitor's uniform could hang beside an executive badge without one making the other less true. They stopped measuring dignity by titles, bodies, or how easily a life could be explained to strangers. That was the part no scan could show. The missing report opened a medical question. The answer opened a door. What waited beyond it was not a miracle delivered all at once, but the slower work of choosing, failing, trying again, and allowing other people to remain close without surrendering ownership of the path. Years later, when people asked Elara what changed her life, they expected her to name the surgeon, the hidden scan, or the operation. She named a night janitor who found a wet envelope and understood that cleaning was not the same as throwing away. Then she corrected herself. He did not change my life, she would say. He made sure no one else got to decide it was already over. And that was the truth.